Hi, this is Pastor Jim Clark. Welcome, class, to our lecture for today, which is Movies That Moves Mind. So today we're going to talk about, and we're going to start talking about various aspects of modern culture. And first of all, I would like to address the issue of where to draw the line. I remember so well, I was in a business establishment. I had gone to do some business there. One of the people there happened to be a Seventh-day Adventist member. I kind of knew her a little bit. And beside her was her co-worker, apparently, who didn't go to church. And for some reason, the discussion came up, do Seventh-day Adventists wear makeup? And they both looked at me like, what's the deal, Pastor? So I had to think pretty quickly. And I said to them both, I said, well, do you know Tammy Faye Baker? And they both said yes. And let me show you a picture of Tammy Faye Baker. She was a popular TV Christian talk show hostess with her husband Jim Baker. And back then, even for today, if you look at her, she wore gobs of makeup. So I said to them both, do you think Tammy Faye Baker wears an appropriate or inappropriate amount of makeup? And the secular girl piped up right away, say, yeah, that's too much makeup. So the first thing that we have to recognize when we're talking about where to draw the line is that, see, some people are what we call nihilistic, is that there's no line should be drawn. Anything goes. You can eat anything, you can see anything, you can listen to anything. But oftentimes, if you go to the extreme of anything, people will say, well, that's too much. So the question isn't, should you do it or not do it? It's where are you going to draw the line? When is makeup too much makeup? When is it too little makeup? Where are you going to draw the line? And in the aspects, in the context of that discussion, you have to bring up the frog in the kettle. This is a fairly well-known illustration where the frog gets in the water and you start turning up the heat very gently. And the frog gets comfortable. Oh, I like this warm water. Then it gets a little warmer. Oh, this feels nice as well. And eventually, of course, the pot gets too warm and the frog gets cooked. You know, I remember when we were out in the Philippines, my wife and I as missionaries, and we would come back early on, we would come back every year, and we would be a year out of our culture. And as we went down the street, as we saw what's on TV, we would go, wow, the culture has really shifted since we've been here last. So this brings up the illustration of, we are all frogs in this culture called Western individualism here in Southern California. Our cultural values and mores change a little bit over time. So we have to be aware that we're shifting. And we don't want to get into the place like the frog where it shifts so much, we are cooked, and then we're really not good for ourselves or for other people. Well, we might ask, where does the Bible draw the line? And in Philippians 4:8, the Apostle Paul, who wrote that epistle, that letter, says this, finally, brothers and sisters, whatever is true, whatever is noble, whatever is right, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is admirable, if anything is excellent or praiseworthy, think upon such things. Because you know what you put in your mind is going to shape and form who you are. And so here we have the Bible that I believe was inspired by our holy and loving God, saying, you know, if you want to lead a healthy, happy, holy life, these are the things that you should gravitate to. So the Bible is there, and maybe you have other holy writings that you're acquainted with. They are there to help us draw a line. And if most of us were left to draw the line, we would draw it pretty low. But in the Bible, in other better writings that we can consult, the line is actually drawn pretty high between what was considered appropriate and inappropriate behavior. So this is just a verse to consider: what we eat, how we dress, what we see, what we hear. There should be some filtering of where we're going to draw the line, and we should turn away from those things that are injurious to us and ultimately injurious to others. Now we're talking about the movies, and I have a confession to make. When I became an Adventist in the early 1970s, it was impressed upon me that movies were not the best things to go to. And if you would have asked me, well, Jim, why don't you go to movies? I really wouldn't have a very good answer. And today, if you were to ask me, Jim, is it okay to go to movies or not? As a Christian, as an Adventist, as a person, I would say, if you want to go to movies and you feel that's something that you want to do, well, that's your decision. You can go to movies. But I would like to bring up one thing that I experienced that I think you should factor in, and certainly I factor in. See, because some people say, well, look, what is the difference between seeing a movie on your cell phone and going to a movie house and seeing the same movie? Well, I think the issue is intensification, and let me explain. My daughter was part of a music choir group when she was in academy or high school, an Adventist academy, and one day she said to me, Dad, we've been asked to sing the national anthem at the LA Kings hockey game. If you bring a group of us to the hockey game, you get in free. I said, wow, that's great. I get to go see a free hockey game, and I can see you sing. So we went down to Staples Centers. They sang the national anthem. It was very nice. And then we went up to the stands to see the hockey game. Now, hockey is not my sport that I really love, but I know a little bit about it. And I am from and at that time I was from Los Angeles, so of course I'm for the Kings. And it was very interesting to me that during the game, the Kings scored a goal. Now, usually when someone scores a goal, whether it's in soccer or hockey or score a touchdown in football or make a nice shot in golf, I'll say something like, wow, that's really great. But it was very interesting to me that when I was in that Staples Center with 12 to 15,000 other people, and the Kings scored a goal, I found myself raising to my feet, clapping my hands, and yelling my head off. And I reflected on it earlier, and I said to myself, there was an intensification of the experience because I was seeing it live with other people. On the couch, I have a limited reaction, but when I go to the live event with thousands of people, it is the energy of the building is going to intensify what I'm going through. Well, I think the same thing can be said about viewing movies, where you view them. You know, if you're on the cell phone, you know, it's a relatively small screen. Okay, you got your stereo headphones on, whatever. That is a certain experience. But when you go to movies, the screen is huge. The sound is overwhelming. You're with other people. What does that mean? There's going to be an intensification of the horror, of the adventure, of the experience, of the romantic scenes. And so, do I think it's okay to go to movies? Yeah, you can go to movies, but I think you have to factor in the intensification. If you look at a movie on a scary movie or some movie on your cell phone and you're barely able to contain yourself, you might think twice about going to see the same movie in a theater where there's lots more intensification. You know, I remember so well when I was a pastor in Los Angeles, our youth group was going to Magic Mountain. And I invited our neighbor. There was a Korean store that we used to go to, and there was a teenager there, and I invited her. Well, when I picked her up to take her to the Magic Mountain, she said her cousin was visiting from Korea, and would it be all right for her to come to Magic Mountain? I said, sure. And so we got to Magic Mountain, and one of the newer rides at that time was Colossus. It was a wooden roller coaster. I think it's been taken down now. Well, I had ridden roller coasters, and this Korean girl had ridden roller coasters in their life, so I was somewhat prepared for it. But her cousin, who had come from Korea, had never ridden a roller coaster before in her life. Well, we stood in line, we got on the roller coaster, and yeah, it was really exciting. We all screamed. When we got off the roller coaster, the cousin who had come from Korea, well, let me just say that was the first and last roller coaster she rode that day. She had been totally terrorized by the experience. So the same frog in the kettle experience. So the intensification, our society is getting more intense. The music's getting more intense. The beat's getting more intense. Movies are getting more intense. And so we have to be careful that we're not sucked into too much of an intensive experience, because that can change our lives and how we interact with one another. Now, for your assignment for this week, I would like you to go to this website. Let me show it to you. It's a website, How Jesus Keeps Showing Up in the Movies. And it goes over various movies, some of them recent, some of them not so recent, some of them with clips showing how Jesus appears in the movies, how there's a Messiah. We usually call them the hero or the heroine appears in the movies. And what I want you to do is go through this list. I see here it is being developed by the Latter-day Saints, which is a fairly conservative Christian, I should say, denomination based in Salt Lake City, Utah. This is from their website, going over the Matrix, going over various movies, Batman, etc., Aladdin. And what I want you to do is go over the website and pick one of the movies, just one of them. How does the movie Messiah that you've picked compare and contrast with what you know about the true Messiah? And what impact does that have in your career going forward? So what I want you to do is pick out one of the Messiahs that are depicted in the movie. He's not called the Messiah, or she's not called the Messiah, but they are the hero. They might have some faults, but they probably have some superpowers, or they have some abilities where they come just in the nick of time to bring about the rescue of the city, of the heroine, of the group that needs help, deliverance from the evil forces. So I want you to look at the movie Messiah and then compare and contrast them to the real Messiah, what you know about Jesus in the Bible, and then think about how that should affect you going forward. Because look, when you go into a hospital patient's room, or you go into a home as a speech pathologist, you have a role of a Messiah. You are there to help them. You are there to heal them. And you assume a role, whether you like it or not, of having influence over a person. And some people you really will make a huge amount of difference to. So what have you learned from the movie, whether it's the movie Messiah or the real Messiah, of how you can conduct yourself going forward in your medical career?
Freedom is not about strength.
So now what we're going to look at is a clip, a 4-minute clip from The Dark Knight Rises. And there's many Christian themes in this clip. So what we're going to do is go through the clip and think about the Christian themes of how he escapes from the pit.
It says the leap to freedom is not about strength.
My body makes the jump.
Surviving is the spirit, the soul.
My soul is as ready to escape as my body.
Fear is why you fail.
No, I'm not afraid. I'm angry.
Why do we fall? You do not fear death. You think this makes you strong. It makes you weak.
Why?
How can you move faster than possible? Fight longer than possible? Without the most powerful impulse of the spirit. The fear of death.
I do fear death. I fear dying in here. While my city burns. There's no one there to save it.
Then make the climb. As the child is. Without the rope. Then fear will find you again.
Ah, supplies for your journey. Oh, that's wonderful. That's
What does that mean?
rise.
No.
So that's the scene in the most dramatic scene of the movie of Dark Knight Rises. And there are several extremely interesting Christian counterpart themes in that short clip. And let me just go over a few of them. We have the man kind of talking about how to getting out without a rope. He kind of represents the Father, and of course, the God the Father giving advice. We have Jesus there in the pit, and he needs to get out in order to save the world. And let me go over Psalms 41-3 that reflects on the similar experience. Psalms 41-3 says, I waited patiently for the Lord. He turned to me and he heard my cry. He lifted me out of the deep pit, out of the mud and mire. He set my feet upon a rock and established my going. So here we have someone in a pit. Just like Batman was in a pit, the Bible pictures that we are in a pit. And in a sense, Jesus was put in a pit when they crucified him. But then it says that he brought me up. God brought me up out of the pit. And as we see, Batman gets out of the pit by faith. He has to make the leap of faith. We also have to have faith in the Father in order to live lives and be connected with him. Then once Batman gets out of the pit, he goes to rescue the city. And here it says, he set my feet on a rock and established my goings. Also, very interestingly in the movie, as you see when Batman gets to the top, it pans down to the people below, and one of the people there is kind of turning away sadly, thinking that, okay, he made it out, but I'll never make it out. But then very tellingly, Batman throws down the rope so other people can get out. And this is in the 3rd verse of Psalms 41-3. He put a new song in my mouth, a hymn of praise to our God. Many will see and fear and put their trust to the Lord. So once you get out of your pit, just like I got out of, as I explained in my testimony, just like I got out of my chicken house, I got out of the pit that I was sunk in by God's help. God has enabled me to help other people out of their pits. So then this resurrection, this raising up, this saving of myself and the saving of others can go on until he comes. Well, next week is our looking at music that shakes the world. And since I'm a musician, I've been involved in both popular music and sacred music for many, many years. I'm not well acquainted with the current popular music, but I do know something about music and how it's produced, etc. And so we will have that lecture for next week. I hope you're all keeping safe, that you're not totally zoomed out, and we will continue meeting every Monday night at 7 o'clock. God bless you all, and have a good day.